This episode is brought to you by This Is a Studio, the studio with all you need to start your own creative journey. If you would like to begin, head to thisisastudio.com.au.
Hello and welcome back to How Did You Do It? Today I sit down with Kaitlyn Menere, who is a holistic psychotherapist and a coach. Her mission is to unfuck your nervous system and to help you transform your life. Kaitlyn is well known within the wellness industry, running hundreds of events. She also co-owns the Reclamation Retreats alongside Elise, and generally is just so inspiring as a person. I hope that you enjoy this episode with Kaitlyn. It is absolutely amazing as she is so knowledgeable and her authentic truth is tangible.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to have you.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me in this beautiful space.
It's such an honor. I feel like I first came across you and I was like, you're a power woman. You just have this aura of being like, I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. I know just like life itself. And then I think it's beneficial for the audience to know I've probably met you like 4 times. So I feel like I have so much to learn about you through this conversation. And I'm also going to be joining your retreat in Bali in May.
That is so fucking exciting. Can I swear?
Yeah,
Sorry.
we can swear.
I'm like 4 sentences in. Fuck. No, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you to join us.
Bali deserves the fuck.
It really does. It's an insane retreat.
Let's get into the start of your journey because you were a makeup artist for how long?
10 years I was a makeup artist. And it's so interesting that your first impression of me, where you said like, oh, she knows about life, she knows about herself, that is so foreign to me to be able to be described like that, because it's really only the last few years that I've really come into myself. But if you had met me 3-4 years ago, no way would you have ever explained me like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Who were you then?
Well, I guess majority of my life I was just like a shell of a human. I didn't know who I was. I was really anxious. I was really avoidant. I had no identity of my own. And so I think that's why it's such a big part of what I do now is helping women find their identity and find themselves, because I spent like 27 years of my life just going, who am I? What am I doing? I'm so lost. But I thought that I knew. I think that's it. And so I was a hair and makeup artist for 10 years of my life, and that's all I knew. That's what I did.
When you say you thought that you knew, what do you mean by that?
I never really, like I would see people be like, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, that's not me. Like I found hair and makeup in year 10 and then I did my diploma when I finished high school. And then all through my 20s, that was what I did. I never felt lost in my career. And I would work for editorials. I would do bridal. I was a makeup trainer for a little bit. I worked for Mecca for a little bit. So it was always part of my journey. And that part of my life never felt lost. So when people are like, oh, I don't know where I'm going, I'm like, oh, I don't resonate with that. Like I have found my career at 18 years old and like I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But I felt lost internally about myself. And that's what that's what I didn't know. It's like I didn't know that it could get better than this. I thought this was just who I was, and this was just part of life, that people were just really, really anxious about meeting new people, or that they would pick up personality traits from different people that they hung out with, that they didn't really have deep, meaningful conversations. Like I was so unaware of what I was unaware of. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
When did that awareness come into play for you?
It would have been 2021 when I started working with my first coach. I'd seen psychologists for years and years and years to help with like depression and panic attacks. And it wasn't until 2021 I was going through a breakup and I decided to work with a coach, and I'd seen them around and I'm like, what is this? Like, why is this so different? And she changed my absolute life. And from there, that kind of started this like self-development journey. And I'd never been one to do anything like that. I was just like, you guys are nuts. Like, you're weird.
Why do you do the things that you do?
Yeah, why? Oh, clearly you have issues that you're like going to journal and you're going to spend all this time on yourself. Like, righto. I'd been meditating. I'd learned to meditate because I had panic attacks, and that's what helped me. And so I'd kind of like dabbled into it, and then I worked with this coach. She changed my life, and then I just started like it. As you know, it's like this snowball effect where you're like, oh, and then you keep going, and then you keep going, and you keep going, and it wasn't until then we went into lockdown, we went into COVID, and I couldn't work being a hair and makeup artist. All my weddings got cancelled. There was no jobs, there was no editorial shoots, there was no e-com shoots, and it was just me. And I'd moved into this new place by the beach by myself. My family was out of the 5K radius, had no friends, and it was just me and my dog.
Oh.
And for the first time in my life, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Holy fuck. I was so alone, and I'd been going through this breakup, and I'd been kind of dabbling in self-development. And it was that moment that I was like, this isn't what I want to do. And it really opened up this whole can of worms for me. And it was during that time where I was kind of working on myself that I found this course, Masters in Holistic Counselling. Never been interested in it in my life. Like I was not the friend that you go to for advice. I was the friend that you go to if you want to vomit from your alcohol.
I resonate with this so much.
Like, it's not like, oh, I'm having a bad time, I'm going to approach Kaitlyn and she's going to make me feel better. It's like, I'm having a bad time, I wonder if she'll get on the bags with me this weekend. I'm having a hard time, I wonder if she'll help me numb and avoid.
Totally.
Like, that was the friend I was. So for me to find this course and be like, oh my God, I think I want to help people. It was like night and day. And it didn't make any sense to me, but I had this like tingling sensation come through my body, and I'd read this course and I'd been reading books and I saw it and I was like, I think I need to do this. And it, logically my brain was like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, you've actually lost the plot. If you think that you're going to be a counselor and you're going to help people, like you make people hot, that's what you do. That's your thing. This lockdown has really gotten to you. Like,
This is your loneliness.
This is my it was just me and my own brain, like battling internally, like sort it out. And I was like, no, like I think I want to do it. And I enrolled and I spoke to whoever ran it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I remember telling my family, and they were like, like, okay, like whatever's going to make you happy, whatever you want to do. And I was like, no, I think I really want to help people. And that just kind of ricocheted this whole spur of events, which is now what I do for work and my whole entire life and what people know me for.
Yeah, it's your business.
It's my business, it's my livelihood, whereas 3 years ago it didn't exist.
And this is so cool because like so many thoughts have popped in, but the snowball effect is to like once you commit to change and once you commit to self-development, you think that you've hit a point and you're like, oh, I'm good. And then the world's like, jokes.
Don't get too comfortable.
Let's just remove everything from under your feet.
Literally.
And then try meditate.
Yeah. Because, and that's the thing, like with meditation and with life, it's like it's so easy to meditate in a silent room. But that's not the point of it. The point is is to go out into the wild, into the wilderness, and be able to find your center, to find your focus. That's what we do with personal development. It's okay. It's a lot easier to be alone in your house because you're not getting triggered by anything. And that's where people go, I'm so healed, I'm so ready. And then they step out into the wild and they're like, fuck, now I'm getting triggered by everything because you're getting tested.
It's like a big game. I see it as a game. Yeah.
The game of life.
Game of life.
Yeah.
Side note, did you ever play that board game?
I've never played it. I was more of like a categories family.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great game too.
Categories.
I was just game of life gal, just buying all the houses, getting all the kids. Nailed it. Real life, different story. No car, no kids.
But a podcast.
True. Appreciate that. So you started this journey, which is now your business. And I feel like you would be exposed to so many people, so many mindsets, so many things. What are the themes that you see as a coach? Because I also think that I also have been through the journey of different psychologists, and I never really delved into the world of coaching until pretty much mid last year, I would say. And it's so different and it's so valuable. Valuable. Doing really well. It's so valuable. It adds so much value. It adds so much value to your life because you have someone that is like skilled in lifting you up, pointing out, you know, your subconscious behaviors, cheering you on. They're there throughout the week at any time. Like, people need to understand how much value a coach brings to the world.
Yeah.
Talk from your perspective.
Well, yeah, from my perspective, so I started seeing a psychologist when I was about 24 or 25, and it was when I was dealing with, or not dealing with, grief from my mum passing when I was 20 years old. And I saw a psychologist every week or every fortnight for maybe 2 years. I was on antidepressants. They kept kind of getting upped, and I was in a really, really, really dark space. And I felt, even at that time and upon reflection, I remember going into my psychologist and it felt like I was just like catching her up from all the shit that had happened during the week, and there wasn't actually any progression. Like, it was just like, hey, this is how sad I've been. But hey, I didn't try to neck myself this week. Hey, I made it to work this week. Hey, I put some pants on and I made it here. Like, it wasn't actually, let's get you forward. It was just a repetition of what I'd been kind of going through. And that's what I thought that was healing, right? Because everyone says you need to go and see someone. You need to go and see someone. I was like, this actually isn't like helping me at all. I'm just spending all my money to sit here and talk to this lady, and she's lovely, but like, I don't actually feel like I'm moving through this. And then that's where I found coaching, and that's where I found like breath work and all these other modalities. And I think that's where coaching is so valuable, because so valuable, because it's not just tell me about your week. It's like, what are your goals? What's your visions for the future? Like, how can we actually get you there? And then you have access, and depending on how the coach runs it, like, this is what I found really valuable for my clients, and what I find when I'm a client of another coach is having that like messenger support and having that access to someone to be like, message them and be like, I'm really freaking triggered right now because my boyfriend is blah, 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 doing this, or this is what I'm feeling. And to have a response within like a few hours, and to feel like you've got someone there literally in your pocket supporting and helping and guiding you, it's a game changer, because it's not transactional. It's not, here, I'm here for my 2 p.m. appointment, and I know you've got a 1 o'clock and a 3 o'clock and a 4 o'clock, and I'm just another folder that you pull out and you tick through the boxes. It's like, hey, I see you and you see me, and we're in this together. And I've got you, and you can bring whatever you want to into this space, and know that it's never too heavy and it's never too much. And it's not something that we need to speak about all the time, or it's not something that we need to really like, we can speak about whatever you want, and I can be here for you in whatever way that looks like. And I think that that's why I love coaching so much, because it is so much more than just a transactional conversation. It's literally like a deeper relationship, and depending on the other modalities you include as well, like the option's endless. It's beautiful. It's a really beautiful space to be able to be in.
I love that you said that it's like we're in this together and it's less transactional, because I find that as well. It adds, I'm not even going to go down the valuable. I honestly have never struggled so much. Like, I say it every day, and today my brain's like, not today, Gabby.
No, actually, you cannot say that word today.
Oh gosh. Yeah, and I think that the fact that it is less transactional, it adds, I think it's a special relationship, and I think that it is something that, you know, is so different from sitting in front of a psychologist for that appointment, as you said, to just speak about what's happened. You know, it's not actually working through in the moment what's triggering you. You mentioned about your mum passing away. So she passed away when you were 20?
Yeah, 20 years old. It was 6 months before my 21st birthday.
Oh my gosh. I just got chills. How did she pass away?
She died of cancer, a few different types by the time it kind of took her. So she was diagnosed. It's quite hazy in my memory, because obviously you kind of try to blur it out when you're that age. But I know that she got breast cancer. She went through the chemo, the radiation, kind of went away. Then it came back stronger. Double mastectomy, ended up in her lungs and her femur as well. So it just really took over her whole body.
How has that shaped your journey today?
I don't think I would be doing anything closely remote to what I am doing if it wasn't for that. Because that, as a 20-year-old, that impacted the rest of my life. Like, it still impacts me to this day. And I think to be able to, I think when it comes to losing someone, like a parent or a child or like your spouse or whatever, it's like you have two choices. You can turn that pain into a fucking power, or you can sit and be the victim to it. And I don't want that to sound as harsh as it may sound, but for the first 7 years of her passing, I was a victim to it. And I lashed out and I didn't do anything really about it. Like, I saw this psychologist, but it wasn't really doing anything. I was angry. I was so depressed. I took it out on every single person around me, and I was so unwilling to do anything else. Like, I was in a full victim state of like, my mum died, don't treat me like that. My mum died, I can do this. My mum died, I can do this. Like, really, really victim. And then it wasn't until like, when I was like maybe 27, 28, 29-ish that it was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this doesn't need to be a pain and be a victim. Like, I can actually turn this into a power. I can use this pain to propel me forward. Because if this has happened to me, then imagine how many other women, how many other people that this has happened to, and they don't actually know how to deal with it either. And so her passing, her memory drives what I do, because I don't want anyone else to feel how I fucking felt for all those years, where I felt like I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know what to do. I felt helpless, and I felt like there was no support that was actually helping me. Like, go see psych, go have antidepressants. It's not actually fucking helping. It's putting a Band-Aid fix on it, right? I don't want anyone else to feel like that and not be able to move through their grief. And it's not a matter of forgetting them. I think this is where people get stuck with grief, because it's like, if I move through it, if I stop crying, if I stop grieving, then I forget them. But it's like, I'm living for her now. And like, I can just imagine she would be like, "Who the hell are you? Like, what are you doing with my Kate?" But it's just like, everything, all of that has shaped me into this person. And to be able to deal with death from someone that is your primary caregiver, like my mum and I were very, very close, especially right up until the end there, to be able to deal with that death and still be able to go on, like, that is a power in itself, for sure.
It is a huge power, and I think it's amazing. I can speak to being a victim as well for so many years, and it wasn't until I saw a therapist who was really life-changing for me, and she actually pointed it out to me, and she was just like, "This is victim. You're doing victim right now. You're persecuting people right now. You're saving people right now. Like, where are you for you?" Wow. And it was that mind shift of taking that responsibility of myself and not relying on anyone else and not relying on anyone to save me or anyone to pick me up. It's like, no, like, I get to choose. And that's when my whole world shifted. And even speaking to feeling that pain and not wanting anyone else to feel how you feel in that moment. And also, when you don't know where to turn in those times, when you are feeling that pain, majority of people go to self-destruction. Because it's like, how else do you keep going if you don't know what those patterns and behaviors are? And watching how you've turned your life into what it is now, it's so inspiring. And I know it's so inspiring for so many people. You know, you look at your content, and even just recently you were saying, speak about the things that you're scared to speak about. And if you're avoiding speaking about a topic, go into it. Like, you have this aura of like, I'm taking life by the horns, like I'm driving it. And it's really, I was going to say, I don't know what the word is. It's like, it's tangible. You can feel it, and it's powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think that, you know, I wanted to ask, when you were making that transition and you came across doubts you came across people saying, you know, don't do that, because how did you overcome the voices that were external to you? Because when you're looking to change, you're already dealing with your own doubts. And then when other people add their doubts in, that can really halter the journey.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to give a bit of context, like I know I briefly spoke about like my journey has been from makeup artist to this coach, holistic psychotherapist kind of vibe. To give a little bit more background, like during that time, during that transition in lockdown, I got really bored, obviously, not being able to work. And I started hanging out with some different people, and I started getting really heavy into binge drinking and into recreational drug use. So when it comes to that self-doubt and stuff, to paint you a picture, like I have gone from that last like mid-year, Q3 kind of 2021, I was like partying a lot. I had nothing to do because I had no work. I had no job. I couldn't do anything. So I was just like doing random shit all the time, hanging out with people that I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with. It'd be like a Tuesday afternoon, 11 o'clock, and we're doing racks, like lines of rack off someone's dinner table that I've just met, like that kind of person. And then for me to go, I think I want to actually help people change their lives. Of course, I had my doubts, but literally every other single person around me was like, you've actually lost the plot. Like, that doesn't really make sense. So for me to go from that person into this person, I had to battle not only my own internal, like, can I actually do this, or have I lost the plot? Am I insane? Do I have this within me? Do I actually have the skills? One. Do I actually have the knowledge? Do I actually have what it takes? And will I be good at it? And I remember when I first discovered this course and I enrolled, and I was like, like I did the thing, and I got to that point where I was like, now you do the thing. And I was like, oh, I just kind of liked thinking about it. And then it was like, cool, now you pay the money, now you get your first module, and now you do it. And I remember just freezing and be like, no, actually, I think I'm just going to go back to makeup. Like, I'm just going to continue doing makeup. This was a nice pipe dream. This was a really nice, like, lockdown vibe dream. And I remember, I can't remember, I think it was my coach at the time, and she's like, write down a list of pros and cons. What are you actually scared of? And it was like, what if no one takes me seriously? What if no one trusts me? What if I can't get people to open up? What if everyone laughs at me? What if everyone judges me? Like, I was so scared of who I actually was, because I'd been, like I say, party girl, makeup artist, but that actually wasn't me, right? This was this facade that I was putting on to get people to like me. But at the time I didn't know, right? At that time I was alive at the party. Everyone fucking loves me. I was like fun. And like I had all these like insecurities inside, but on the front, no way would you have known that. Like, I was blonde. Sometimes I had hair extensions. I would wear like almost a full face of makeup every day, fake tan, went through a fake nail face. Like, I was just like vibing, or so I thought, right? In my head, I'm like, I was such a hot bitch. But like, you would never have guessed, like inside I was like, I have no idea who I am. Like, I'm just doing this so you like me. And then it got to this point where I was like, okay, I think this is actually my calling. This is actually really what I want to do. But how do I do that in the real world? Like, internally I felt it, and it was probably one of the first times that I'd ever trusted my intuition to this degree of like full body tingles. You need to do this. You cannot just keep going back to makeup. And I had all these doubts, all these thoughts in my head going like, people are going to judge me. Like, I'm going to start posting about, and at the time I was studying holistic counseling before it turned into like my psychotherapy and coaching. And I was like, people are going to literally think I'm crazy. People are going to judge me. People are going to be like, this doesn't actually make sense. No one's going to trust me. Like, how am I ever going to get clients? Because I've never even spoken about personal development. I've never so much as even shown up on my stories. I've never posted a freaking like no rain, no flowers quote. Like, I've never done anything to do with this. I just post pictures of me boomerang cheersing my friends on the weekend. Like, it was such a stark contrast. So coming out of that, and then I was like, cool, I started like, I remember I started posting quotes on my Instagram. So I had my personal Instagram, and I was like posting like inspirational quotes and resharing them on my stories. And I remember this so clearly because I was like, okay, this is me like dipping my toe in. So everyone knows, because I'm going to be this counselor, and like I need to start doing it. I need to start doing the thing. someone messaged me and they're like, hey babe, are you okay? I've noticed you're posting heaps of quotes. Are you a bit depressed at the moment?
That's not what I meant.
The opposite. I'm helping you.
You're depressed.
You're depressed and I'm helping you. Is this not inspirational? And I was like, fuck.
So what did you do from there?
So from there it was like, okay, I need to actually, like, I remember I started studying and I just started like, oh my God, it was so funny.
Sorry, you're depressed.
You are depressed. I'm saving you. Right? And I started like venturing out and just started posting more and sharing what I was learning. Like at that point it was like, I'm not ready to take clients. I think I'd been studying for maybe like 3 or 4 months. And like during this 2021, I actually had no social media. So when I went through this breakup and when I was going through lockdown and all of that, I deactivated my Instagram. So I had no social media for 8 months. So for me to come back in and that I remember posting those quotes and that was my like introduction to society again because I'd been like MIA for 8 months and I'd gone through this big internal transition and then posting these quotes and I was like, what the fuck? You haven't been here for like 8 months and now you're coming back and you're doing this. So it was all very confusing to the external, but like internally I was also like, I don't understand either what's going on within me and I just need to follow this. And then at that time, I remember sitting there and I had been, the first part of my course was meditation therapy teaching.
Wow.
So I was learning about meditation and I had been meditating more and I had been really understanding what it is and looking after your nervous system and all of this. And I remember this one day so clearly, and I really hope my dad doesn't listen to this or any of my family, but I remember I had my assignment due and it was due at this time and I remember I got out of bed. It was like 3 p.m. on a Monday because I'd been on a bender all weekend, got out of bed, snorted some cocaine, submitted my assignment for meditation therapy, all about the nervous system and how to look after it. And then I was like, something needs to fucking change. This is not congruent.
This is my favorite story ever.
Like, what are you fucking doing?
Oh my God, I like because it speaks to the transition because you don't just wake up one day and you're like, I'm changed. I'm now a therapist.
Right.
It's like there's still a process of like dabbling in the old and the new and also like recognizing that the old still exists. Like you still have the old parts that show up and it's learning. I had the biggest trigger this morning. I literally was in the bathroom like bawling my eyes out being like, I can't do the podcast today. And then I was like, no, Gabby, this is where we learn the tools. Like we can do this, we can turn this around. But it speaks to it, no one's just this perfect being that's like, I got this. Like we might got this sometimes, but not all the time.
Not all the time. And the point of it isn't to get this all the time.
Yeah.
It's you get to the point where even though you feel like you can't got this, you got this, right? Like it's not so you never waver. It's not so you never come across any self-doubt again. Like I get it all the time, but you just build up, not all the time. I get it occasionally, but you build up this tolerance to it. And that's what it is. It's not going, I'm going to grow and I'm going to learn and I'm going to develop myself. So I never get the wobbles. I never feel an ounce of doubt. I never feel any type of like overwhelm or any kind of like, oh, I'm fucking scared to take that risk. You build up your tolerance enough to go, I'm fucking so scared of that, but like giddy up, let's go. And that's the difference, that you don't let it rock you.
And you've spoken about this before, the building of the self-trust, because that's huge. Like it's
So I had to sniff and I moved away from the microphone. I don't want to sniff into the microphone.
That was so strategic. Like
I was trying to be inconspicuous and now it's brought attention to it.
I'm fully cutting that into a reel.
We're like talking about like cocaine and my body's like remembering.
Oh my God.
So yes, so I had submitted my assignment.
Yes.
Okay. And then I was like, something needs to change. Right. And at that time I had decided, okay, I'm going to stop drinking. And I haven't touched alcohol again for over 2 years, right? And that was like a weekend thing.
I needed to talk to you about this as well. Yes, continue.
Okay, park that with that.
We'll come back to
back to that. And so all my friends at the time were suited to that environment. So they were the partiers, the ones who you didn't really have deep conversations with, but they were there for a good time. And so when I was like, hey, like, oh my God, I've started studying, or like, hey, I got 100% on my meditation therapy teaching assignment, they were like, okay, cool. Do you want to come out this weekend? Like it wasn't so much like a doubt, but it wasn't supported. And that was the environment that I was in. And I think environment plays such a big part in your success and what you do. And then I had all this doubt filter through of like my friends who knew me from one version, not being able to see the transformation. And this is where I see my clients get stuck as well. And this is where I saw myself get stuck, because they get so scared of letting go of that life. Because for me to fully step into not what I even am now, for me to step into that next little bit, I had to let go of so much identity, so many friends, so many habits, so many lifestyle choices.
It's such a big journey. It's so hard. And like people look at, you know, where you are now and it's like, oh my gosh, she has it all together. She has it all figured out. But it's like that part of your journey, like you kept taking the steps. You kept committing to what felt right to your journey, your intuition, what you wanted to do. And I once saw this reel and it was like, there's always a point of like the biggest part of the journey is sticking through the loneliness of it.
Yeah.
Because it's making space for the new to come in, but you just can't see it and you don't know what's on the other side. So your ego is trying to like keep you safe because you literally think you're going to die without all these people and friends and the same environment.
Literally. And you have to go through that loneliness. Like you can't just replace new friends, like replace your old friends with your new friends, because you're not actually that person yet who's going to call in those new friends. You have to make room for it. And sometimes it involves, like, I lost one of my best friends. She'd been my best friend for 10 years. And we were no longer aligned in what we were doing in our lives. So that was really fucking hard for me. But then making that space, going through that period of loneliness of like, I actually don't have any friends. Like I remember sitting there and just being like, I actually don't have any friends right now. None that I could call and be like, if there was an emergency. Like I had acquaintances and I had people who were friendly, right? But there was not that core group or those core people that were like so solid. But I had to go through that period of loneliness to be able to find the friends that I have now and the ones that feel really solid and feel really secure and that just keep evolving with me as well. I think that's so important.
Going through the journey together.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. Yeah, I love that. I think I've spoken about it before, so I try not to repeat myself too much because then I listen back and I'm like, I say that every episode. But yeah, I got to a point start of 2023 where I like everyone bar one, like 6 of my core people moved overseas or interstate, and I was literally just like walking around being like, oh, like
what do I do?
Yeah, like where do I go? And I also was like kind of hanging out with people that I was like, like give or take, don't really want to be here, but like I'll be here. And the drinking thing, because I've kind of gone through journeys of sobriety and like I'm still identifying myself around alcohol because I was sober for 6 or 7 months completely and loved it and felt so good.
Amazing.
But then when there was like a big celebration or like a wedding or a big event, I wanted to have a drink. So I was like, where do I see myself? So it's been a very interesting journey because I've also listened to Huberman who says like the ideal is less than 2 drinks a week or 2 drinks a week. And that's just not sustainable if you're out socializing and drinking. Like you're drinking more than 2 a week. So 100%. It's been a big journey. How did you find sobriety came into play for you and the journey of now 2 years, did you say?
Yeah, over 2 years. So it was 2 years November. So sobriety was one of those things that just surprised me. Like I didn't really plan on it. It was in that transitionary period where I'd started studying and I was doing a lot of alcohol and a lot of drugs, and it just was that kind of moment where I was like, this is not congruent. Like I cannot be learning about the nervous system and learning about how to help people. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I'm just wiping myself out. And my relationship with alcohol started as like most Australians. Like we start drinking when we're like 16 and we get on the cruises and the goons hacks. And like I was never one, I didn't really enjoy the taste of alcohol. So I was never one to have a glass of wine with dinner or like anything like that. I was just like, I want to be waking up in my own fucking vomit or like don't even bother. Like I want to send it. And that is what I did. And I would go out and I would just drink and I would know my limit, but I would just keep going and going and going and going. And I remember like countless like festivals that my boyfriend at the time would just have to like take me home or like put me in an Uber, send me home because I was just sloppy. And I was like, I'm so fun. I was like, you're actually the worst. Like you're actually ruining this for everyone. But like my relationship with alcohol was just like you drank until oblivion and that was it. And so for me to go, I think I want to just, that's not congruent. I think this needs to change. I'm just going to see how I go one weekend. And that's all it was. And I remember that weekend I hung out with my friends. It was like a friend's birthday picnic. And I remember having conversations with these friends I'd had for maybe 4 years that I'd never had before. And I was like, I'm learning so much about you, but I've hung out with you hundreds of times. We've been friends for like 4 years. Why am I only just learning about this now? And I was like, it's me. Like I was never open to letting people in or learning about people. I was very, very surface fun vibes. And for me to take away that security where I thought, oh, alcohol helps me like get to know people, it helps me connect, but it actually wasn't. And then to not have that there, I was like learning all these things about my friends who I would have considered at that time like my best friends. I was like, we never had this kind of conversation. And then I was playing, the boys had a frisbee and a soccer ball and I was like out there playing with that. And like I remember going home and being like, I got to drive. I got to have the best day in the sun with my friends. I got to learn all these things about my people. And it was like, I'm not vomiting. I'm not hungover. Like this was the best idea that I've ever had. Like,
why didn't I try this?
I'm a genius. Right? And I was like so happy with myself. I was like, I can do this again. Like, and I never once told myself you can't drink. It was never like, you cannot do this. It was like, I'm not going to take any, but I know that there's some in the esky. I know that if I really wanted to drink, that I could. And so it came from a really empowered place because I know how my mind works. Like you tell me, I tell me, you can't do this. I'm like, watch me do it 10 times faster. Like, and this is,
I'll race you.
Yeah, I'll fucking race you. Let me score this. Like, watch me do this. And this is how I work with my own brain. And this is why it's important to get to know yourself, right? So if I had said, Kaitlyn, you can't drink, you can't drink, you can't drink, and that kind of mentality, I would have just wanted it more. But for me to go in, I'm choosing not to drink. No, I'm not drinking this weekend. No, I'm actually not going to drink. It's like I'm making that conscious choice to not drink. Like I'm in control. I'm powerful. I know that there's seltzers in there. I know that it's a beautiful sunny day. I know that this is my exact time that I would really want to drink. I'm going to choose to not. And that's all. I just have to make it through this one picnic. And then I made it through the Sunday. And then, okay, let's try it again next week. Okay, now I've had a whole week sober. Let's do it for the weekend after, And like at that time, my friends were having lots of social events as well. So I was getting really, really tested, like going out to bars and going to different things. So I was like, no, I'm choosing not to. And at the start, I was getting like some mocktails. I was never really big on sugar though. So I'd have maybe one and then I'd just go to like lime and soda. And it looks like a vodka lime soda. So no one noticed. And I slowly was like aware of my confidence growing and growing and growing. And it was like this thing of like, none of these people actually care that I'm not drinking. It's just me. And I can have so much more fun. And I got to drive and I can drive my friends home and I can still get Maccas on the way home. Like I can still do all the things that I want to do, but I'm not being a piece of shit. Like I'm not ruining my life. I'm not saying things that I actually wouldn't say. I'm not being sloppy. I'm not being messy. And I'm not waking up with that like hangover anxiety of being like, what did I actually do? Oh, there's a bucket of vomit next to me. Great. Now it's 4 o'clock on a Monday. What am I going to do with my life? How do I return from this? So it just kept going. And it was like not an accident. It was very intentional, but it wasn't a planned, I'm going to go a year sober. It was just like, I'm just going to keep going. And then it kind of got to 6 months and I was like, cool, I'm just going to go for a year.
Are you now at a point where you're like, I'm never, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right now, there's nothing that I see would make me want to drink. So I've been through 3 Christmases, 2 or 3 Christmases. I don't know how time works right now. I've been through a few Christmases. I've been through my 30th birthday. That was a big one. So I went sober in November and then my 30th was in March. So I was at this point, it was like 4 months in, and it was the sickest party, called it Coachella, and it was like Coachella themed, and I hired this Airbnb and it was like a day. Yeah.
Love it.
I'll show you the reel later.
Please.
Show you some pics. So it was a vibe and I was like, cool, I'm only 4 months into this journey. This is the fork in the road. Do I continue on this sobriety path and enjoy myself, or do I have a drink? It's my birthday. It's a celebration. And then I sat with myself and I was like, you know that you're not just going to have one drink. You know that you're going to have like one birthday drink and it's all going to be fun. You're going to absolutely send it. So then the choice became, do I stay sober or do I send it one more time? And I was like, what would be the point of me sending it? What am I actually going to gain from that? And through that, I realized that I wasn't actually gaining anything. It was that I thought I had to do it because it's a celebration. But realistically, I didn't actually want to do that. I didn't want to write myself off. I didn't want to be inside all afternoon, like snorting shit. Like I wanted to actually enjoy myself. And I knew that the friends that I had there, I could enjoy myself with. So I made the decision to go completely sober. I had a few mocktails and that was it. And then it was the most interesting thing, but it was like permission for other people to be sober. And I never said like, you can't drink here, like BYO, do whatever you fucking want. But there were so many other people that turned up. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually not drinking either.
Wow.
I'm not. And it was that beautiful permission of like, because you see me in my power not drinking, you feel safe enough to not drink. Whereas if I was like, I'm getting fucking rowdy, like it would have been a completely different story. So yeah, I went through my 30th. I went through my brother's wedding. I went through my sister-in-law's hens. I've been through some really dark times as well over the past 2 years, which I have had thoughts of like, I'd kill for a drink. I'd kill for just like wiping myself out right now. But nothing has made me want to drink to that extent. So right now, I don't think I will ever drink alcohol again.
Whoa. That's amazing. That's powerful. And then when you were saying like with the with the lime sodas, were they the new friends that you had made, or was this sort of still in the party group that were kind of phasing?
This was like still my old kind of friends, my old friendship group. So I would have them. And then if there was any like, as I was getting to know this new group of friends, no one even like batted an eye because I would have that like soda and lime. And then they'd be like, oh, can I get you a drink? I'd be like, yeah, it's just soda and lime. And then it would open that conversation of, yeah, I don't drink. And it was like, it depended. Sometimes I was a lot stronger. Like I'd like to say like I was so powerful the whole time, but sometimes that doubt did creep in, right? Because we do care what people think. We do want to be accepted. So me coming into this new group of friends, part of me was like, they're going to think you're fucking boring. And this is like one of my biggest fears is someone being like, you're boring.
You're like the least thing from boring, just by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. That means the world. But like for me to be sober, because I don't think I'm boring, but like there's this fear of like someone's going to think that I'm really boring because I don't drink. Someone's going to think I'm like a goody two shoes, or that I don't know how to have fun, or like I'm really straight laced. And for me to go into this new group of friends and be like, oh, I'm not drinking. Sometimes I would just be like, oh, I'm not drinking tonight. Or sometimes other times it would be like, yeah, actually I don't drink, and I would feel open enough to have that conversation. But what I realized is some people can't handle that.
Yeah.
And they will go, why?
Yeah.
That's boring. Just have one. I encountered this in Bali. Some chick, we'd made friends with friends, and there was a group of us having dinner, and she was like, not even on a holiday? And I was like, well, one, I'm not on holiday. So wrong. And two, yeah, because I don't have a life I need to escape from right now.
Yeah.
Like it can be really hard. I think that's where people struggle, is dealing with the other people's shit. Because I've been on that side as well. I remember when I was like deep into my partying phase, I remember being on Hinge and someone was like, no drinks, no drugs. And I was like, boring.
Nope.
Right. So I get it.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, because I was definitely had my party phases, and it's like I didn't want to accept other people. It just is a reflection on whoever is the party person. Like that's the reflection on them and how they're feeling about it. Because I remember being in that phase, and like if people weren't drinking, I'd be like, nah. And I think it shows what you attract when you're in that phase, and then what you attract when you're out of that phase. But I also wanted to ask, how do you find joy or have fun now? Like what is that? And the reason I ask is because I think there's such, and especially within Australian culture, like people don't know how to have fun without going out to a bar and drinking. And it's something that I've just encountered so much within Melbourne of the drinking culture. And so I wonder your perspective on like belly laughing and having fun without it, and what are people doing without it?
Well, see, I still go to festivals, like festivals, gigs. They're my favorite thing in the world. Like put the sun on, get the sun out. When the sun's on, the music is playing. Like that is, I'm just happy as. And I thought it was because I got to hang around my friends and get fucked up. But it's actually because I enjoy the music and enjoy the sun. I enjoy the vibes of people. So like that's what I do for joy. I see my friends and I actually connect with them, and we have like these deep belly laughs like that we've been having. Like it's those open, honest conversations, and it's just like doing dumb shit. Like you can still do dumb shit. You can still do dumb shit sober. Like
Can confirm.
You can still like I still go out dancing. I still go and make a fool of myself sometimes. Like you do different things and you don't need that alcohol to do it. You think that you need the alcohol to do it, but you actually can do the dumb shit sober as well. What a selling point.
Do dumb shit but be sober so you know that you're doing it.
And it keeps better for your health.
True.
Right?
True. That's so true.
Yeah.
Didn't think about that.
It's the health thing, I think, is what keeps me going on it as well.
Yeah, because you've healed I know we've prior to recording touched on it. You have
Crohn's, yeah.
And you've healed that naturally. Is that correct?
Well, with Crohn's, there's no, like, you can't cure it, right? But I'm in remission. So I don't have any active Crohn's in my body. And that was through more natural, holistic remedies after coming off. So I was on medication when I first got diagnosed. And I think that's a story for another day. That was a whole thing of like 3 years of my life in and out of hospital, and I had pipes and drains coming out of my body and the whole thing. And I got to this point 2 years ago, 18 months ago, where I no longer wanted to be on medication. And it's the same thing as like the psychologist. It's like a Band-Aid fix. Like this isn't fixing anything. This is subduing my symptoms. And because I'd been on this kind of like more natural path in my life, and I'd stopped drinking, and I was doing cold water therapy, and I've been doing breath work, and I've been doing all these like healing things, I was like, this is my next thing. I don't want to be injecting myself with medication. I don't want to be taking tablets every night. And so I entered this extra phase, this other phase of like really going down this healing journey with it. And I think knowing what alcohol does to the body, and knowing how incredible my body has been responding to not having alcohol, let alone my mind, right? That is such a big part of it as well. Like I wouldn't be able to do this shit that I do now if I was still getting like fucked up on the weekend. Not even in a matter of congruency, but just like mentally, right? You need to be alert, you need to be on, and you can't do that when you're like constantly drowning out and constantly avoiding things. And that's what alcohol does, right? It's lowering your vibration, and it's taking you away from something. That's why we drink. Like, we want to avoid things.
I have so many thoughts. Like I'm like, I could just take this so many ways. I think that like it's all things that I'm just like, everyone needs to hear everything.
I know. I keep giving you like little Easter eggs. I'm just like, we can go here, or we can go here.
No, because I just like, I keep reflecting on like the moments in your journey where you could have just stopped, or you could have been like, this is too hard, but you didn't. And like, you know, actually looking at what you have built now within, let's say, the time span of like how many years? 3 years, would you say? 2 years?
We'll have my business 2 years May.
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, like going from posting and like transforming your Instagram from what people knew you as, and, you know, grieving friendships, and that within itself is a whole topic. Like I also have had moments of, you know, moving on from long-term, beautiful, strong friendships, and there's something about a breakup of a friendship that's so much harder than a romantic relationship, because the friendships are meant to be grounded and founded in support and love and wanting the best for one another, and having those positive memories, but knowing that it's no longer aligned. And then, you know, thinking about how you've sat in that loneliness and you've kept pushing through it and learning about yourself. Like it's just such proof that if you continue to be on that journey and you choose what's right for you, like what comes into your life as a result of that. is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like if I look back and to that time where I first chose to study and I first made that decision, it wasn't going, okay, if I study this and then I'm going to have this incredible online business, then I'm going to start a retreats company and then I'm going to be able to do this, this and this. Like I never saw this big journey for myself. In my head, it was like, cool, I'm going to be a holistic counselor and I'm going to have a little clinic and I'm going to help people and we're going to talk about, at the time I wanted to really help with trauma, PTSD, grief. Like I was like, I want to get into the heavy shit. And that's what I saw for myself. And I never would have been able to play this out in my head. And I think that's the most beautiful thing because it's like you can't even imagine the possibilities. I never, if you told me those 3 years ago when I'm sitting in that room doing the things that I was doing, hey, babe, one day you're going to be running international retreats in Bali. You're going to have your business fully online. You're going to actually help all these incredible women. You're going to be running breathwork events. Like people are actually going to trust you. People are going to look up to you. You're going to be doing podcast interviews talking about your life. I'd be like, you have the wrong address. I make people hot for a living.
Yeah.
Like that's all I am. So I think being able to go, even if you don't know what that like the full staircase looks like, going, I see what that next step is. And that's incredible because you don't know what the rest of the staircase is going to be once you take it. And just keep going.
And I also I love how you own your truth in everything. Like, you know, even the fact that you can laugh about what you used to do. Like I used to have a lot of shame about parts of my journey, but now, you know, coming into this part of my journey at the age of, what am I? 28, I think. Yeah, fuck, I'm 28. Oh, but like, yeah, this last year has been so transformational for me in just owning my truth and being like, lol, my mom's going to listen to this. But the other day she was like, have you ever done drugs? And I was like, do you want the truth? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, of course. She was like, you told me you're never going to do drugs. I'm like, you said you wanted the truth. You actually can't get mad at me right now.
I fucking love that.
And so, you know, even looking at, you know, you own that part of your journey and then hearing what you talk about on Instagram, how you were going to move to the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And then decided not to and just own it. And let's talk about even Bali because you now have this retreat business with Elise, who the listeners will know she was on last. My timings are weird, so I'm never going to say when she was. We recorded it last year, yeah. But released a little bit ago. Yeah. So you moved to Bali to live there for a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah. So originally, this is like my year last year was absolutely wild. I had this idea and I was like, I think I want to run retreats. I think I want to do a retreat. I just pulled it completely out of thin air that I was like, that could be really fun because I've been running like events and I've been really liking bringing women together and things like that. And I was like, that sounds fun. And I've been seeing people on Instagram and then my friend asked me to help him run one. He's like, it's in Bali. And I was like, sick, perfect. So I lined that up. And then there was another one that I feel like I manifested it very, very hard because someone else was going to do it. And I was like, well, I'm here if they pull out. And then the next minute was like, hey, they pulled out. Can you do it? And I was like, yes, I can.
Planned.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So all of a sudden I had these 2 retreats lined up in Bali. Never done a fucking retreat before in my life. Never even been on a retreat. But I was just like, this is what I want to do. And so I'd gotten to, so I was like, at the start of the year, I was like, okay, I'm done with Melbourne. I'm really over it. I'd been seeing someone, it didn't really work out. And in retrospect, I was definitely running from feelings and things. And I'd gotten to the start of the year and it was like March. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the Gold Coast. That's really calling me. That's where I see myself next. So I started like thinking about it, started looking at doing it and all this stuff. And then these Bali retreats came up and I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to go to Bali for 2 months, a month or whatever it was, I can't remember. I think it was like 6 weeks between these 2 retreats. If I'm going to do that, well, I might as well just not even come back to Melbourne and just go to the Gold Coast. Like there's no point. So I might as well just terminate my lease and just sell all my things. 0 to 100 real fast. Right? There's absolutely no point in me owning anything ever. So
get rid of it all.
Literally me though. Get rid of it all. Every single thing, get rid of it. So I was like, cool, all right, this is what we're doing. So I'd booked and I was going on the 8th of May and I was going to spend 6 weeks in Bali. So I was like, cool, I'm going to terminate my lease and I'm going to go to Bali and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to move to the Gold Coast and that's it. So I had one of my homecoming event, which was my big breathworking event. And I was like, this is my last one, guys. I'm moving to the Gold Coast. Then I had my birthday party because it was in March and I was like, bye guys. Like this is my going away party. I'm moving to the Goldie. Like, see ya. And then sold all my stuff on Marketplace, buy a couch, my rug, everything was going. Packaged all my boxes, Queensland. This is going to Queensland, this is going to Dad's. And then I go to Bali. And the first retreat ended up getting cancelled last minute. So I ran the second retreat and I was like, holy fuck, this is where I'm meant to be. Like I remember having so much doubt creep in because I got paid for being at this retreat and I couldn't fathom it. Because it was like I was just doing what I love. Like I had the most fun. I was just like really impressed by what I did as well, right? And I'd taken all these women through these incredible workshops and this breath work and and then someone paid me for it. But I was having I should be paying you for this. like literally I remember speaking to my coach and I was like, I feel like I cheated. Like someone shouldn't be paying me to have this much fun because I'm enjoying it so much. And I never really, like I'd been working with clients and I'd feel that momentarily, but for someone else to let me have that opportunity and then to pay me for it, I couldn't comprehend it. And so I did this and then I was like, okay, I got to the end of that, like I think I was at like 58 days or whatever. And I had the best time and my business started like blowing up. And then I came home and and then I came home and I was like, oh, and it was Melbourne winter. So it would have been like June at this time, June, July. And I was like, oh, this isn't where I want to be. Booked another flight straight back to Bali. I think I was home for 6 days and I was like, this is too cold. No thanks. Managed to book another retreat at that time for a small business who was doing a franchise retreat. So all my flights and everything were covered again. So I was like, cool, I'm there. And then I ended up, oh God, what did I do? I ended up then I came back again after 3 weeks because I had something in Melbourne. I think I'd booked another event. And then I was like, no, I'm just going to go back. And I had another retreat in Byron. So I went and I did that. Then I came back to Melbourne and then I just left for Bali again.
Oh my God, I love it.
And I was there for another 2 months and that's when Elise and I ran our first reclamation retreat and it was incredible and it was all the things. But I was like, I ended up spending, I think it was 6 months, I was officially homeless because I terminated my lease and anytime I came back, I would stay at my dad's. 5 months in total in Bali and then I had that month, I think it was August, where I was in Byron and then I was in Brisbane and then I was in Tassie for a little bit. Like I did quite a bit of traveling in that month. And then I was like, I got to the end when I was coming home in October and I was like, oh, was I meant to move to the Gold Coast? My plan had just completely gone out the window. And I was like, oh, and I got back and all my boxes are labelled Queensland and I was like, oh, I changed my mind.
I'm actually here for good.
I'm actually going to stay in Melbourne because and my plan had changed and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I remember saying to one of my good friends before I left, I was like, I don't know what happens in Bali. And this is before I left in May. I said, I don't know what happens, but I don't see myself in the Gold Coast anymore. And I was like, I don't know if I die in Bali, but I can't see it. She's like, you're not going to fucking die.
Please no.
But yeah, I was like, maybe. And yeah, and I never ended up making it, but I never made myself wrong for it.
Totally.
And I'd announced it to everyone. Bye, moving to Queensland. Bye, moving to Queensland. I'm a Goldie girl now. Like I was so for it.
Totally.
And then to just let myself change my mind and not be like, oh, but you said.
Yeah.
You said you were going to do
it. To everyone.
You said.
You had a goodbye party.
You had a goodbye party.
This is what we do though. We literally put these limits on ourselves being like, no, you can't do that because you said.
You said. And there's a difference between like following through with the promises and then following through your intuition. Like I could have absolutely moved to the Gold Coast, but it was no longer in alignment because of the growth that I had experienced in Bali. And I think I needed to know that I wasn't coming back to Melbourne in order to do that. Because if I still had my Melbourne apartment, then I wouldn't have gone for that long. I needed to set myself free in order to experience all the growth and all the incredible opportunities that I experienced.
Do you think that chapter of like the loneliness gave you the courage to do the solo explore, like travel, can move? Because I find with me, I've traveled so much solo and I've done so much solo time that I don't fear my own company anymore. It's just like am around people for too long and I'm like, oh, I got to go process.
I'm going to be alone. Yeah. Well,
Totally.
Absolutely. It's a tolerance thing, just like anything else. And if you're struggling to be alone, you need to start doing it in small doses. Everything is a tolerance game. You build it in different areas of your life. So for me to go through that big period of loneliness and to build that self-trust and that self-confidence and to build my security, it's like I know that whatever happens in Bali, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because I've gone through periods of loneliness. But I remember maybe like 3 or 4 weeks into Bali, I experienced real loneliness because it was the first time I didn't have my dog with me either.
Oh,
Luna. And like I'd had her during that COVID lockdown and it's like I almost didn't realize how much company she gave me. So for the first time so I got her in 2013 just after my mum had passed. And like for the first time I was like fully alone. And I was thousands of kilometers away from my friends and family. And I was like, I'm actually fully alone. And I went into a bit of a deep loneliness hole. But I only had the resilience and the tolerance to go through that because of all the other shit I'd been going through. Right? You need to have that tolerance. You need to have that build up.
How did you get out of the loneliness hole?
I resisted it for so long, right? I'm not even going to pretend. I was like scrolling. And then I had to, eventually like 2 days in, I was like, oh, you need to sit with this. And it's once we sit with something that we can allow it to come up, that it can easily dissipate.
Yeah.
It's when we keep going, no, I don't feel that, and we just push it down, that actually gets bigger and bigger. Like, have you ever experienced that where you're like avoiding something?
Literally. Or I had to learn how to actually let it come out. Like that, I remember, like 2 years ago, if it was like a really deep wound, I would be so quick to self-analyze and self-intellectualize and like logic my way out of it and tell myself things. And I didn't realize that was just, it was so destructive. I thought I was doing the right thing by like channeling positivity. But when I actually learned how to shift it and actually feel it like move through, I was like, oh my God, I feel so much lighter. Like it's out. It's not suppressed. It's out. And that's really powerful.
Well, that's the thing. It's not just intellectualizing it and being like, I'm lonely. It's I feel that loneliness and letting myself cry.
Yeah.
And letting myself, whatever my body kind of needs to do to release it. Like sometimes I throw literal tantrums because that's what my body feels like it needs to do. And it's not about making it wrong. And it's not about, obviously, like, we're not speaking about being violent to anyone, but it's like, sometimes you actually do need to have that really big cry and to feel it. And then you can process it and then you can move on, because it's not something, especially loneliness or like grief or anger. It's not something you can be like, oh, I'm so angry and I'm going to outthink it. And if I think about my anger a lot, then it will go away. Like, you need to feel it to heal it, that old thing.
How do you find grief comes up in waves for you now? Like, how does grief, I lost my granny, gosh, was it last year or the year before? And she was one of my absolute favorite people. And like sometimes it will just hit and I'll just like burst, and then I can go like 8 months without crying about it, but then like a big wave will come up. Like, how does grief show up for you at the moment?
Grief is really interesting. It's changed over the past few years. So obviously in those first like 5 years when I was not doing anything about it, it was quite different to how it shows up now. Breath work has been incredible for me in the grief space, because grief is stored in the lungs. So when you're deep diaphragmatic breathing, it's actually helping you move through and release a lot of that. So that's been really good. But in terms of how it kind of comes up now, I can get to a point where I can speak to you about it and I don't get that emotional trigger and I don't get sad and I don't cry. But there's definitely been times where I couldn't even speak to it. Or there'd be times where I remember when I was working in makeup and I had this client and it was her deb ball and I was doing her makeup. Would have been maybe like 4 or 5 years after mum had gone, and her mum was there and she was helping her get ready, and this client was just being an absolute cow to her mum. And her mum was doing all the nice things for her. She'd clearly gone and got her hair done, and then she had her jewelry, she had her fake tan, her nails. I was doing her makeup for a deb, and she's just being an absolute fuckhead to her mum. And I just started crying. Like, I started crying because I was like, you don't even know how good you've got it. Like the things I would do to be able to have my mum bring me to a makeup studio and to sit here and do my makeup with me and experience that again. Like you don't even know how much you've got it. And I think it comes up in waves like that. Like when I see someone going through that, or recently my brother got married, 2 years ago. And I think there's definitely events that bring up the grief more than everyday life. Like that was a big thing of like, fuck, she's not here. My brother and his wife are having our first baby in the family.
My first baby
my
too.
first baby niece or nephew. And she's due in 3-4 weeks. And that's been a big thing that's been playing on my mind as well, of like, she doesn't get to see that. And my brother doesn't get to have that either. And that baby doesn't get to have a grandma on this side. Like it comes up in those ways. It's her birthday. It's going to be her 60th birthday actually this Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. So that again brings up the grief. But I think the last few years I do deal with it in a different way, where her birthday and her anniversary, I play her funeral songs and I will sit with myself and listen to those songs, and maybe I'll sing along to them or whatever it is, and I will cry and I will just repeat. And I let all of that fucking emotion out. And it's not in a way of I've held it down for the rest of the year and now this is my time. It's like I'm really going to give myself this space to feel, to heal, to connect. And like I'm wearing, like this is her wedding band. Like I wear this with me as well. Like, so she's always there. But it's like I'm going to give myself the space to have that. And sometimes I write her a letter and I speak to her in like that kind of way. But the grief, it's not like, oh, well, it's been 12 years, so you're good. Like tick, it can pass. Like it will hit you randomly, and it'll get triggered by different things in the world, or different memories will pop up. And it's like, it's never just going to be something that you don't think about. And
it's like always there.
It's always there. And I think people go, oh, well, it's been that long, you can't grieve. It's like, actually, it's relevant. It's still relevant.
Totally. I remember like around the time my grandma passed and like the messages I received, but I knew within myself that the hardest part would be when those messages stop, because it's like, where do you have the space to talk to people about it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to get emotional. Like where do you have, like how do they live on through the memory? And even now when I talk about my granny to people that haven't met her, I'm like, I feel sad because they haven't met her, but she was like such a huge part of life for my family. And I think that like only people who have lost like someone that, you know, someone of huge importance to them, there is that space to talk about it and remember. And yeah, songs and going through photos and talking about it, or like giving someone a hug who, you know, can empathize with that feeling of the loss, because you're like, there's just like a small part of you that's like, I just want them here now, like just a conversation. Just,
anything.
Yeah, literally anything.
Yeah.
Just give me something. A sign.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it's powerful. Is there anything that, like, what would people not know about you from what you show the world?
I feel like I'm a pretty open book, which is really interesting. Obviously, there's some like private parts of my life that I don't air online, but I have made it a really conscious choice to make sure I'm sharing the shitty things as well, and being really honest online, because I think that when it comes to these people in the industry that I'm in, it can be a lot of toxic positivity and a lot of like, everything is always great and everything is perfect and it's like you're the issue, or like love and light. So I think that there's really nothing that's like bubbling against the surface. Like I'm happy to talk about like my drug use, my binge drinking, my mum. Like there's really nothing that's like, oh, this is a little secret.
Yeah.
Here's the inside scoop.
I remember once, actually, this just came to my mind. Once you said something about being a threat in the industry, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting, because at the moment I've been in a lot of conversations around gatekeeping, or, you know, the importance of being around people that lift you up. And I'm sure that as with anything, like there will be people that are like, oh, I'm intimidated, or I'm, you know, like that person's doing this. Like, is that something that's constant for you? Is it like, does it just kind of pop up? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, the threat thing is really interesting because like from my past, I never really saw myself as anyone who could be threatening. Like I remember I used to work at Target. Target was like one of my first jobs, and I was studying makeup, and I was like, I want to work in the makeup section, and I was in ladies wear, and my manager was like, you're not intimidating enough.
Oh,
Yeah, like I wasn't
that's such
intimidating.
interesting feedback,
Isn't it?
Like, okay, let me put a bitch face
like,
on for you.
like now I'm ready. But like I'd never been someone who you would look at and be like, oh, I'm really intimidated by her power or her strength or her that she knows who she is. So for me to like go from like makeup artist, party girl, rah, rah, everything was fine, everything was bubbly. For me to be seen as someone who may actually intimidate someone else was a real struggle for me because that felt really unsafe. And even success in general felt like shining, putting myself out there, being seen as like, oh, you're actually doing really well, felt like a threat to me because I'd never experienced it before. And my whole like high school, primary school, I was bullied.
Wow.
So much.
What?
So fucking much.
My mind's blown.
Like almost every day I was like that girl that got bullied constantly. And so as a safety like mechanism, I just kept myself small. I kept really safe and I never really rocked the boat or I never really put myself out there. So when I started doing this and people would be like, oh, you're such an inspiration, I would be like, don't do that. And like this whole being a threat thing, like I had to be okay with people seeing me as a threat to them.
That's
Wild. And because people will, and you can't control how people perceive you, but if you're going to grow and you're going to expand, and the more like my business grows, the more I grow, I need to be okay with people not liking me, which feels like I'm just trying to help the world.
Yeah, but I'm trying to do the right thing.
I'm trying to do, I'm living my truth. I'm trying to do the right thing, but I need to be okay with people not resonating with that. And that's not going to be, I'm not going to be for everyone.
Yeah. Whoa. How could you not though?
Right?
Like who are these people?
but that's the thing. Like some people do not like me. Some people do not resonate with what I have to say, and that's okay.
Totally. But also in my mind, it's not. Just say.
Also, they're really wrong. No. But like that's what it is. And the more you grow and the more you expand, and you'll experience this with the podcast as well, that people will just not like you. I know. And it feels really like
it's jarring.
It's jarring because as a evolutionary, we want to fit in with the tribe.
Yeah.
It's a survival thing that we're accepted by everyone and we fit in and therefore we're safe. So if we're rejected by someone, we're outside the tribe, we could die.
Yes.
And that's what it feels like to be rejected or to be left out or for someone to be like, no, I actually don't like you.
Whoa.
Yeah.
When we're offline, can you tell me that story?
Yeah.
Like who is this person?
It's happened a few times. Like people will comment on my things and just people, if I put up anonymous question boxes, like I don't get a lot of hate, which I'm very lucky, but there is a few things that people just don't like about me.
Whoa.
And but being okay with that and not trying to
like mold,
which I was so used to doing. Like being okay with being me, being okay with being misunderstood. Some people might not understand how I live my life and what I do and all the crazy things that I do, crazy. And that's okay. And some people might not like how I show up on Instagram and that's okay. And I think that comes back to the self-trust.
And also like I can hear like you're being so kind to yourself by saying that is okay.
It's okay.
I have two things that keep popping up and then they keep going. So I'm going to voice them so you can remember them if I'm blank.
No promises.
One is the self-regulating nervous system because I think we need to touch on like how important and any tips and tricks. And the other is I feel like we haven't honed in on like you went from like we haven't spoken about your first client, the first like event.
Okay, so my first client.
Yes.
This is not something that I recommend doing.
Oh, I'm excited for this.
In classic like Kaitlyn fashion, I went balls to the wall and I just threw out some numbers and threw out some packages and I didn't step in slowly. And it kind of turned out to bite me in the ass a little bit because I'd gone from like doing hair and makeup where I was charging $170 for a 45-minute makeover. Like I was like head of my game, kind of like top dog, and I would make maybe like $1,500 for an e-commerce shoot. So like the way I made money, I was used to a certain kind of like exchange. So when I go into coaching, my mind was still almost at that level. And so instead of going, I'm a really new coach and I'm really new to this industry, so I'm going to do heaps of freebies and really get my experience up and really get the trust going and really doing this, this is my mistake. I go and just transfer my prices over to that. And I just come in, it's like, yeah, it's $999 for a 9-week or something. I can't remember what I launched with. But looking back, I had no business doing that because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And this is a mistake that I have made that I tell other people about as well, because I thought I was doing the right thing because I was like, I've got to look after myself and I've got to do this, and don't underball yourself, don't lowball yourself, but don't, So my first thing that I ever ran was a masterclass for nervous system regulation. And because I had just been learning about the nervous system and my mind was like, why does not everyone know about this? This is blowing my tiny freaking mind. And I was like, I've got to teach the masses. I've got to show everyone. And I launched this masterclass and I think I charged like $44 for it. And I had like 20 people sign up and I'd made like $800 from this 1 hour masterclass. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I am successful. Like,
I have made it.
I've made it. I'm so happy with this. And then off the back of that, I got a client and she joined and I gave her that price and she was happy with it. And I remember I was still fumbling because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like, I was almost making it up as I go along. And I had client sessions because part of my qualification was case studies. So I had some experience, but this was like my first paying client. So I had that client come in and then I didn't see anyone else for so long because I didn't know how to sell. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I was still gaining that experience that I needed. Then I remember I launched a different masterclass and I think I did this one for free. And it was all about habits and creating rituals and morning routines that suited you and all this fun stuff. And then I had a client sign off the back of that who is still with me today.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Literally still with me. It's been almost 2 years that we've been working together. And she has just evolved with my business, which is incredible. So shout out to G. We love her. From there, I then so that started like developing and I started getting clients, and then I started doing meditation. So meditation was actually the first thing that I did for my business because, as I said, I was learning it at the start. And I had a friend who was running a group program. He's like, I want you to run a meditation for my group. And I was like, oh, I don't do that. I'm not a woo-woo girl. I don't I had no interest in meditation. Like, I did it myself, but I was like, I'm not that kind of person. Like, no one, again, the self-doubt, like no one will listen to me meditate. I don't have sound bowls. I don't have dreadlocks. Like, I'm not a super woo-woo meditation guru. I didn't even mean to rhyme that, but like
that was
here for it. Here for it. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to tick this part off of my course and I won't ever look at meditation teaching or anything like that. Not interested. And he's like, no, I really want you to do it. And I was like, fuck off. Like, I don't want to do it.
You're like, no.
I'm not a meditator. No one's going to listen to me. I don't know. I yell. Like, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, please, like, I think it'll be really good for you. And I was like, okay. So I did it. And I remember I was a Zoom one and I had my script and I read it like word for word and it was a body scan and I had a little playlist and everyone was like, oh my God, I fell asleep. But this was amazing. It was incredible. Your voice is so calming. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then the next week I ran one and I was like, okay, for that group. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to put it onto the online space. And I was really scared again. And all these self-doubts kept coming in. Like, no one's going to want to come. Everyone's going to think you're embarrassing. Like, no one does any meditation. And this was like before it was like a normal thing to do, right? Obviously it's been around for fucking millions and millions of years, but it's like no one was really doing this. And I remember I put out and I was like, I'm going to do it on Zoom. It's like, DM me if you want the link. And like, there was like 15 people. And I was like, this is insane. And it just started like growing from there. So I started doing Zoom online ones just for free. And then I was part of a cold water community at the time, cold water dip community. And they were going away, the people who were running it. And they were like, hey, can you run a meditation for us? Because we're going to go away. Can you run the session? And I was like, I've never done an in-person one in my life before. And they're like, I think you're going to be really, really good at this. Can you do this? I was like, yeah, right. 300 people on the fucking beach.
Are you joking?
I'm not even kidding.
Did you shit yourself?
Yes, many times. 300 motherfucking people. And I'm not scared of public speaking. Like, I actually love public speaking. So that didn't scare me, but the meditation side of it scared me. And it's like, what if they don't like it? What if they don't get a good result from this? What if I stuff it up? Like, what if they can't hear me? What if they, like, I felt like I was bearing my soul, because it's not just you speaking. It's like I'm letting you in. And at this time I was still really scared of letting people in and to really see the real me. So I felt a lot safer on Zoom, because it's like, you're a screen. All I see is your name. But now I'm going to watch you listening to me in real life. And I remember that first meditation, I had my phone and I had the mic and I was just reading the script like word for word, and I was so scared, but I got the best feedback from it. Looking back, it was probably absolute dog shit. Probably terrible. But at the time it was great. And I think this is where people get stuck. Like, your first time is not going to be good. And you can't expect it to be the best. Because if you're not looking back and going, fuck, that was probably actually pretty shit, then you're not growing. Like, I look back at all of those, and at the time they were fucking amazing for me, but they were also shit for me now. And that's amazing, because that means that I've grown and that means I've evolved and I've changed. But I couldn't get to the part that I am now, where I have all these incredible one-on-one clients, where I run like the retreats and, the big breathwork events, if I didn't start there. Like, you need to start at this smaller staircase. So I started there, and then I started doing weekly classes for a little bit. And then I remember my first one, I got like 4 people, and I was like, this is fucking insane. This is the best. And then the next week I got like 6, and I would just build them up. And then I started doing big like breathwork meditation events where I'd get like 30 people and it would sell out. And it just keeps evolving, and I just keep evolving with it, which is really cool.
This is so inspiring. Like, I have a little like heartbeat going right now where I'm like, I'm so excited.
What are you excited about?
I don't know. I'm just excited to like see it evolve. I'm like thinking about my journey. It's just very exciting and inspiring. Okay. I've always said I think you're super inspiring, and I can't wait for everyone at home to hear it. And I know that there are so many people that have said to me, my dream is this and this and this, and like, how do I do it and how do I get there? And watching how people have done it is like, this is how you do it. And just commit to it.
You just have the delusion that it's going to work out. Like, you just go for it. What is the other option?
Yes. The other option is a shit option.
Well, like, you stay where you are.
Yeah.
And this is the thing I tell myself. What have I got to lose? What is the worst that can happen in this situation? What have I actually got to lose? If I don't do it, I'm going to be in the same spot. If I do it and I fail, I'm going to come back to the same spot. If I go to Bali, terminate my lease, go to Bali, what's the worst that can happen? Absolute worst, obviously I die. But like, second worst, I ran out of money. Cool. I come back home.
There are always options.
It's the ego that gets damaged, or the ego that gets bruised, not me. Right? What is the other alternative to not following your dreams? You stay in this job. Cool. You're going to do that anyway, so you might as well fucking go for it.
Tagline.
Right there. Done.
Fucking go for it.
Fucking go for it. Like, it's one life.
Yes, it is.
It's not like you get to 60 and you're like, oh, actually, I'm just going to rewind and go take this other path. Like, nothing is permanent. Life is fleeting. Seeing, and I think this is where my grief comes in to my story, and what you asked earlier about mum shaping who I am, like, to see all the things that she didn't get to do and all the things that she will never fucking get to do. This is why I'm just like a go-getter. Wow. Like, I'm not just going to stay in the same position. If something is shit, I'm going to change it. If there's something I want, then I'm going to go after it. Because you don't know when your life is going to end. Like, you literally don't know how much longer that you have. So do you really want to be sitting on your deathbed and be like, fuck, I regret showing up on Instagram? No, like, you're not going to do that. You're going to be like, fuck, I really gave it my all. Yeah.
How cool.
Fucking cool.
And you're doing it.
And I'm doing it. And like, don't get me wrong, like, I still get self-doubt always.
Everyone does as human.
Everyone does. It's whether or not you listen to it and how you move from it. Are you going to go, ooh, I feel self-doubt. I feel like I'm going to doubt myself. I feel like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. That means I'm at a new edge. That means I'm actually growing and I'm learning, because if I was comfortable right now, it would mean I'm in my comfort zone and that I'm not going to grow from. So the fact that I'm feeling like I want to throw in the towel and I want to have a little tanty and I want to just stop this is actually a really fucking good sign, because it means that I'm pushing myself.
I love it.
right?
I also love the little tanties. I
lo-
have them too. I let myself. I even
Right?
stamp my foot.
Yeah, literally. I'm just getting this like, I don't want to. I don't want to fucking post this, but I'm going to.
Oh, if I have to.
And then you do it and you're like, cool, that actually wasn't that bad.
I survived.
Yeah,
I survived the post.
Literally. I don't want to, this is a bit of an edge for me. I really don't want to do this. And then you do it, it's fine.
Yeah, we survive. We
survive.
thrive.
And this is the thing, especially if it's like online business or like Instagram, no one fucking actually gives a fuck.
Mm.
You think that they do. You think that everyone's scrutinizing you and watching your every move. I still have people that I see in the wild, they're like, I thought you were in Bali.
Like, don't you care about me?
Are you
Look
not-
at my Instagram.
Literally though. But like, I've been posting that I've been back in Melbourne. I've been back end of October. And it's like, oh, you're actually not that up to date with my life as that I think you are. I think like everyone watches my stories and they're so involved in every little thing and they're taking notes. What's she up to now? No one gives a fuck.
Did she succeed?
Did she succeed?
Mm.
No one gives a shit.
Everyone forgets.
Everyone's
worried about their own shit.
everyone is so preoccupied in their own mind and in their own world that you actually need to be the main character of your own life. And if you're living for other people, like, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? Like, you're never going to move. Like, you have to bring it back to you.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah. No one gives a fuck. Like, we think they do, but they actually don't.
So if you were to give like the 3 or 4 like biggest points about regulating the nervous system or like how powerful it is, it's like, I know about you that you love, that's like your jam. And I probably don't know, like I know little bits and pieces about it, but what are the things that have like blown your mind with it?
Nervous system is one of the things that if you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, you can't actually grow that much, right? So the nervous system is responsible for like our fight or flight response. It's responsible for our stress response, for our freeze response. It's also responsible for the way that we feel like safe in social situations, right? It's connected to everything and it's connected into like all of our organs, our brain, our everything. And for something to feel safe to you, it needs to feel safe in your nervous system. If something doesn't feel safe to you, if it's determined to be like life-threatening or dangerous, that's your response in your nervous system. So you're not going to actually be able to process that information, right? So if we think about something that your followers might get scared of or something that might send them into a stress response, I know we've been speaking about like starting that business, right? If you don't have the feeling of safety within your nervous system to start that business, you're not going to be able to do it because it's going to trigger a stress response in you. And you're going to go into probably like avoidant behavior or anxious behavior. You're going to send yourself into those spirals and you're going to feel really like stressed out instead of being able to do it. When we speak about like that self-doubt and that overwhelmed feeling, that's all part of your nervous system as well. So if you're experiencing these like waves of self-doubt and you don't know how to regulate yourself back into like a parasympathetic response or like homeostasis where you're just level, then you're just going to keep going down into these waves. And if you don't have the capacity in your nervous system to hold stress, you know how we've been speaking about tolerance and resilience, that's your nervous system being able to hold more. You know, when you maybe something used to like really send you off the handle and then you start working on it and now you have like, you can hold it more, right? You with the podcast, I'm sure the first one, you didn't really have that tolerance built up and it probably would have sent you like into a little scared. Yeah. And then you build that tolerance, you build the capacity in your nervous system to actually hold what's happening over the podcast. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it's all about being able to regulate yourself back into a regulated state for your mind, but also for your body, because they're so connected. And if you're experiencing, say, anxiety, it's not just going to be like a mental thing. You're going to feel it in your body, but it can be caused by things that you're putting in your body as well. Like, I think the nervous system is literally the key to growth. Because if you can't regulate yourself, if you can't regulate your emotions, then you're not going to be able to grow past them. Like, there's no point looking into your triggers or doing this inner child work or trying to move through your self-doubt if every time you do it, you're just going to send yourself into a stress response and throw in the towel because you're stressed. Like, if you can't bounce back, if you can't regulate, then there's no point. And it's not about having a completely calm nervous system and never getting rocked. It's about allowing it to move in waves and to be like, oh, yeah, I can feel fucking stressed, but I can bring myself back up. I can feel really overwhelmed, but now I can bring myself back up here. Like it's about having that control and being able to have these conversations and to speak and to do all the things without falling into a stress pattern, right? It's all about coming back into that super regulated state, because when you're stressed and when you're anxious, you know, like you can't think straight. Your mind might turn off, like your prefrontal cortex literally switches off, which is your like logic, analytical thinking. So if you're constantly stressed in situations, your prefrontal cortex isn't online, you're not going to be able to do anything.
Wow.
It's so interesting.
It's crazy. I saw you posted like something about wearing sunglasses in the morning to do with like the nervous system, and I was like, what is that?
Yes. So one of my more controversial opinions, it's actually not controversial. If we're talking about the eyes and in terms of like circadian rhythm, right? So your human body clock is your circadian rhythm, and this is what tells your body to release the certain hormones and neurochemicals that, hey, it's morning, you're going to release these things. Hey, it's nighttime, so we're going to release these and we're going to wind down. So my issue with sunglasses is so obviously we receive light through our eyes, and that is how, if we look at the sunrise and we look at the sunset and we look at the light, that is sending triggers to our mind to be like, hey, it's morning, let's like we're going to release some cortisol, so we're going to wake up. Hey, it's nighttime, we're going to release some melatonin and we're going to like chill the fuck out. You wake up in the morning and then you've got your big light on, bright, big light, your body's going to go like, oh, fuck. Okay, it's the middle of the day. And then we're going to go on a walk and then we're going to put sunnies on. Oh, hang on, it's night. And this is literally what your body will think. So then it's going to go, okay, well, I'm not going to produce the things that I know that I need to for the day. And this affects your hormones, this affects your sleep, this affects every like function in your body as well. And it's such a simple swap. And we think that we're protecting our eyes and we're doing the right thing. And again, this is like from my research, from my opinions and what I've like looked into and learned. But blocking out your eyes and blocking out that natural light, you're stopping that natural cycle for your circadian rhythm. So if you struggle with sleep, if you struggle with like your hormones, your period, all of that, like literally stop wearing your sunglasses.
Wow.
Look at the sunrise, look at the sunset, and it's going to get you back into sync.
So interesting.
It's so interesting.
I could just like listen to this for hours.
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like especially like in the cloudy mornings, like you don't need your sunnies. You're just stopping. Your eyes literally think it's nighttime. So like, let's stop wearing them. Let's like get that natural light in the eyes. Let's regulate through that as well.
What are other little like tips and tricks about it that you've learned?
About like light?
Sorry, just about like, I don't know, nervous system, like little things like that have been like a little bit left of field that maybe people aren't aware of. When it comes to like grounding, bare feet on the earth, very, very important, because it gets you back into the natural sync of the earth. So we're wearing shoes all the time, we're like quite disconnected. So it helps ground your nervous system. Obviously cold water therapy is huge at the moment as well. I feel like Melbourne goes through phases and I've been like doing cold water for the past year, but at the moment it's all the rage.
It's all the rage.
Yeah.
Everyone is doing cold water therapy and there's so many benefits to it. Everyone's in the fucking ice bath. But also like, you got to deal with the shit going on inside your head too. I think people go, oh, but I'm doing ice baths and I'm doing cold ocean dips and I'm doing breath work. But it's like, deal with this shit too. You can't just ice bath your way out of everything.
Me.
But you like, it's a great tool. It's great modalities to help. But if you're not actually dealing with the shit inside your head, then you're not really going to grow and you're not really going to progress. So like, yes, use them as a really good mental tool and a physical tool. There's great like physical and mental benefits. But if you're still avoiding the shit that you're avoiding, then like.
If someone was like at home listening to this stuck, they don't know their next steps. They've heard this, they're inspired to do something. What would be your like, here are your toolkit into your next whoa, Gabby, wow. Like here is your toolkit to get to the bottom of the staircase to where you want to go, right? So let's say they're stuck and whatever. We know that they need to probably look into doing some healthy things like learning about meditation, learning about ice baths, not taking the pressure off themselves. Don't have to be perfect. Just give it a go. Open your mind to it. and then dealing with the things in your head where, you know, would you suggest a coach? Would you suggest a psychologist? Would you suggest both? A tarot reader? Like where are people, what's the toolkit that's going to help?
Yeah, I love that. Well, you can come and work with me, one.
My name is.
Yeah, you can find me on
it.
Instagram. Other than that, I would spend some time alone. I think this is a really important part, and I think that's why I was able to catapult myself, because I was so lonely. Because when we're alone with our thoughts, and I don't mean like physically, just physically from people, I mean like stop consuming. Stop listening to podcasts except this one. Stop scrolling on Instagram. Stop watching Netflix. Stop listening to music. Stop talking to your friends for a little bit. Like, be alone with your thoughts, because you probably don't even know who you are. And if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling this like, I know that I want to do something else, but I don't know where I'm going, it's probably because you're not clear on who you are. And a lot of us aren't. Like, I wasn't. I didn't know what I was doing, or what were my own thoughts. What was my own beliefs? What was my own opinions? I didn't know. So I would spend a little bit of time alone, and even that, if that's like 10 minutes a day, and you're walking and you're just not listening to anything. I'm not saying you need to go and be Buddha and meditate for 40 hours a day, if there was 40 hours in a day. But like, I'm not saying that you need to go and do that. I'm saying just spend a little bit more time alone. And maybe instead of coming home and chucking on Netflix and sitting in front of the TV for 3 hours until you go to bed, you spend 10 minutes just sitting. Maybe it's not even meditation. Maybe it's just, I'm just going to fucking sit.
No one does that.
When was the last time you just sat?
I mean, don't ask me, because I sit all the time. But like,
or just laid.
Yeah, like just literally just being in nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Let yourself be in nothing. Go and sit under a tree and just sit. Don't try to do. Don't try to observe. Don't people watch. Just literally sit and just observe your mind. And let the thoughts come in and let things be what they are. Like, I think that's the first step. If you're feeling lost, we need to clear out. We need to make space for some things to come in. Then I would probably do a little life audit, and I like to teach this to my clients. It's like, what feels really expansive in your life versus what feels really restrictive. So what is really like expanding you, helping you grow, feeling like a fuck yeah, I love this. And what's like, I actually hate this. I don't like doing this. This makes me feel gross kind of thing. Because you're going to go through different phases in your life where things will feel really expansive at one point, and then other times they're going to feel really restrictive. So making space, then getting clear on like a current life audit of like what actually feels good. And you can go through this on so many different levels. Like in my career, in my job, what feels good? What doesn't? What do I like? In my friendships, what feels really restrictive? What feels really expansive? Relationship, family, whatever it is, go through and work out what actually feels good for you versus what feels like it's holding you back. From there, maybe there's something that you go, oh, in my job, like what feels really expansive for me is when I get to talk to new people, when I got to create things on Canva or whatever. And then from there, it's like you can see what areas of your life need to change, because all these things that are restricting you are not going to be helping propel you forward. And that's things that you can look at. So is that something that I can change? I don't like this about my job. I don't like that I have to drive into work for 2 hours. Can I catch the train instead? Can I use that time to study? Can I use that time to read? Like whatever it is. I don't like that my friends will go to bars to drink. Okay, well, can we perhaps go for a walk instead? Can we go on a coffee date? Can I start making those little changes? Obviously focusing on your nervous system as well, because as we're moving through this, you need to be able to regulate yourself and to calm and to have space for those thoughts to come in. So I would do that, and then I would start to feel into like who you want to be rather than what you want to do or where you want to go. What does that next step of you look like? So with this audit, it's like, okay, well, I really love this and I really love this about my life and I don't really love this. So this next version of me, maybe she is someone who goes to the gym. Maybe she is someone who goes for sunrise walks with her friends. Maybe she feels happy. She feels content. She feels safe. He feels safe, whatever it is, but start feeling into what that actually feels like instead of like, she's happy because she has X job. He's happy because he has the perfect relationship. Like start thinking about it from a feeling point of view. And then from there, then it's a matter of like, okay, well, what does that person do? What changes can I make from there? If I'm really wanting like a little bit more consistency. How can I put consistency in this life to be that person? If I think that I'm going to be happy in a different job, and this job that feels really good for me is one that I get to talk to heaps of people and I get to do it online. How can I start doing that now? Maybe on my Thursday work from home day, I go and sit in a cafe and I do it that way. Like there's little bits and pieces that you can do to give you that next step.
Yeah.
And then be open to whatever else fucking might come from that and follow that kind of like thread as well.
That's so inspiring. I also love to do a little thing where when I'm in a really good meditation or I'm like sitting really beyond the thought and beyond the breath and I call in the future Gabby, and she's like, she kind of gives me bit like hints.
Yes.
And then it's like figuring out the action step from there, which that is always such a thing for me that gets me out of whatever I'm sitting in that feels not great.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, today I'm going to do this to get to that.
Yeah.
And it's like intertwined.
And like, what is 1%? What can I do that's 1% closer to my goals? And if you don't know what your goals are, if your goal is to just be happier, to be more secure, what is one thing that I can do to bring me closer to that? Because it's a compounding effect. Like we've said, you don't just wake up and be the therapist. You don't just wake up and be the person who's really good at the gym and she's got all her life together. You don't just wake up and be the person that's got 2 million subscribers on her podcast. It's compounding. Every little bit you do is going to compound into that fucking result.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've loved this conversation and I cannot wait for everyone to hear it and to hear all of the feedback. And thank you so much for sharing all of your insights, your wisdom, your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a fucking blast.
Yes. Part 2 coming soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you do get something out of the podcast and you do enjoy it, the number one way to support me is to follow me across my socials on hdyrdi.pod and to also subscribe on YouTube. I look forward to seeing you next week.